Hello, everybody. Welcome to session number 2, ATSV, phase 2. I'd like to introduce our next speaker of the day, Rich Harper, Director of Government Affairs from the Outdoor Industry Association, or OIA. He will be speaking today about managing supply chains in an uncertain trade environment, new opportunities for apparel and footwear in 2021. That's certainly good news that there are opportunities, there always is, but Rich will shed a little bit of light on that. This is a great follow-up to Laura Rabinowitz's presentation earlier about the election and trade and what's going on around the world. So I would like to remind everybody that we have a chat function on here on Zoom. So if you have any questions, please post them there and we'll address them during the Q&A at the very end. I also like to say hello to all of our Facebook viewers. Same drill. If you have any questions, please post your questions there, and Kevin here will be feeding the questions to me live. So without any further ado, Rich, the virtual stage is yours.
Great, thank you so much, Jason.
All right.
Let's see if I can get my presentation here. Great, well, very happy to be with you all today. Again, my name is Rich Harper. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Outdoor Industry Association. We're headquartered in Boulder, Colorado. I'm working out of our Washington, D.C. office, as I was mentioning to Jason. This is the auxiliary Bethesda, Maryland office of OIA. We're a national trade association, about 1,300 outdoor manufacturers, retailers, and suppliers, supporting the $778 billion outdoor recreation economy, 5.2 million American jobs. Just got some new statistics from the BA last week on that, overall accounting for about 2.1% of GDP. So some more background on OIA. We're a diverse group of outdoor companies, some from some global brands that you're very familiar with, the North Face, Patagonia, Columbia Sportswear, to smaller companies, some retail shops on Main Street, USA, other small innovative outdoor companies like Nemo Equipment and Sims Fishing Products. We have companies that manufacture in the US, so proud of our domestic manufacturers. We also have members who utilize global value chains to bring product to market. And of course, most of our domestic manufacturers also utilize global value chains to bring inputs to the US for their finished products. The core of our trade program is what we call our balanced trade agenda. And this simply means we support the elimination of import tariffs on outdoor products where there is no viable domestic production. And for our Made in USA members, we support policies to help them compete in a global economy. Ultimately, our goal is the same for both members. We seek to promote a stable and predictable environment for all outdoor businesses. And candidly, that's proven to be particularly challenging over the past several years. We seek to help outdoor companies lower their costs, which ultimately can be passed on to the consumer. We're in the business of getting more Americans outdoors to enjoy the great outdoors. And we also recognize that when the outdoors thrive, our businesses thrive. Some key wins in our trade program: we help lead the effort to add travel goods to the generalized system of preferences. This is the main trade preference program for developing countries, and I'll get into a little bit more of that. We help lead the effort to establish the protective at-wear footwear lines in the tariff schedule, recognizing a distinct, unique brand of footwear products that significantly lower the tariff for those products. And we've also led on the patches of several miscellaneous tariff bills. These are several temporary duty suspension and reduction initiatives targeted mostly on footwear that have saved outdoor companies about $40 million. We also helped lead the effort to establish the recreation performance outerwear lines in the tariff schedule. In the next couple of slides, I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the distinct, unique nature of outdoor apparel and outdoor footwear. These are distinct, unique products. These are highly innovative products designed to withstand the rigors of outdoor recreation, so separate from more ready-made mass market apparel. So one example is recreation performance outerwear. Again, we help lead the effort to create these lines in the tariff schedule. In order to qualify as performance outerwear, you must meet 3 criteria and then meet an additional 5, all of which, without getting into the nitty-gritty details of some of these criteria, all of which means that, again, these are highly innovative, highly technical products that are designed for rigorous outdoor recreation. So different from your ready-made mass market apparel. Another set of products that are key to the outdoor space are in travel goods. And I offer this snapshot here with luggage, backpacks, and sports bags, sort of highlight the import tariffs that a lot of these products face. So a backpack has a normal tariff rate of 17.6%, sports bag at 20%. This sets outdoor products apart from other imported goods. The average imported tariff is less than 2%, and yet outdoor products like travel goods face significantly higher import tariffs. I just mentioned performance apparel. You can see those products range from 7 to 27%. A polar fleece jacket has a tariff rate of 32%. So outdoor products generally have significantly high import tariffs that outdoor companies have to manage as they're making sourcing decisions, as they're judging where they want to source their products. Getting back to the protective active footwear line, again, this is another example of how outdoor products are distinct and unique, but that also translates to higher tariff rates. So if you look at these two footwear products, these two athletic footwear products, they look largely the same, except the one on the left has a tariff rate of 20%. The one on the right has a tariff rate of 37.5%. So what accounts for that difference? Well, the only difference, of course, is the footwear product on the right has a waterproof breathable liner. Gore-Tex liner, for example, is one. That takes that, at the time, it took that footwear product from a 20% tariff rate to a 37.5% tariff rate. So we worked on an initiative that established a new category in the tariff schedule specifically for this protective active footwear line so that we could lower the tariff rate from 37.5% to 20%, more consistent with the athletic footwear product on the left. And we're able to do that by creating a new definition in the tariff schedule. And again, I offer it here just to show how distinct and unique these products are. And they have been developed over the years specifically for outdoor recreation. So footwear with a waterproof liners is critical for trail running, for trekking, for hiking. And so we were able to create this line in the tariff schedule and create a separate category in recognition of the advancements that outdoor companies have made in the footwear space and achieve a lower tariff rate. Though to be fair, a 20% tariff is still a significant tariff on outdoor footwear products. So as we're managing these high tariff rates and dealing with highly complex, unique, innovative outdoor products, we have faced several challenges over the past 3 years as outdoor companies are looking to make sourcing decisions and looking to find opportunities to lower their costs. The first challenge that we faced was the China 301 tariffs. The Trump administration launched an investigation into China's industrial policies and concluded that China's industrial policies were undermining US IP and recommended what ultimately became 4 rounds of tariffs on products sourced from China in an effort to compel the Chinese to come to the table, address their industrial policies, better protect US IP. The result, of course, was that outdoor products got caught up in a lot of these additional tariffs. And as I mentioned, they already face significantly high import tariffs, and they were affected by another round of punitive tariffs on top of that if they were sourced from China. So a lot of our products got caught up first in the so-called list 3, that was mostly in the backpacks and camp chairs. So in addition to that 17.6% tariff our members paid on backpacks, they now have to pay an additional 25% punitive tariff on top of that if those products are sourced from China. We also got caught up in this so-called list 4, which was split into list 4A and 4B. Significant for us, of course, in 4A is that this took on a lot of outdoor apparel and footwear. And so those products initially faced an additional 15% punitive tariff. That was reduced to 7.5% as a result of the China Phase 1 deal, which I'll get into briefly. But again, significantly high import tariffs, now facing an additional punitive tariff on top of that, greatly impacted our members' ability to innovate, create jobs, identify new business opportunities as they're trying to manage their supply chains. The list 4B ultimately was postponed and was certainly welcome news. The administration and China did negotiate a Phase 1 deal, which is sort of a ceasefire in the trade war. The 4A punitive tariff was reduced to 7.5%, of course. And the idea was that, and list 4B, I should also say, was postponed, not entirely eliminated, but postponed, and that's significant. The idea was that this would compel both sides to come to the table to conclude a more comprehensive deal. I have here that we've seen little movement towards that comprehensive deal. To be candid, we've seen no movement, I think, towards that deal. And certainly we're keeping a close eye on what actions, if any, President Trump could take in this area before he leaves office. And there has been noises coming out of the administration that they want to enact additional tough measures on China before the end of his term. So something that we definitely want to keep a close eye on before the end of the year. I'll get a little bit more later about what a President Biden will look like with the US-China trade war and other trade actions. But specifically for this purpose on China, I think we're likely to see President-elect Biden pursue a more balanced approach, a more multilateral approach, change in tone in negotiations with the Chinese. But the tariffs are likely to remain for the foreseeable future. President-elect Biden will still need to get something from the Chinese in return for lifting all of the punitive tariffs. So again, as outdoor companies are making sourcing decisions for apparel, footwear, travel goods, and other issues, they have to keep in mind the fact that those punitive tariffs on some products sourced from China are likely to remain for the foreseeable future. Where we've seen some successes on this front is through the exclusion process, the ability for outdoor companies to file petitions with the administration and make the case that these particular products should be excluded from the punitive tariffs. And we've seen some wins on bikes, on helmets, and camp chairs, which is particularly important for outdoor companies, again, as they're making sourcing decisions and managing those supply chains in these areas, that they are able to continue to source those products from China, give them more time perhaps to find additional sourcing options, or to remain with their partners in China, because China in many cases is still the best option for several outdoor products. Our challenge is that many of these exclusions are set to expire at the end of the year or have already expired. And so I think that's something we'll have on our agenda for the next administration, is finding opportunities to extend those exclusions or open the process for new exclusions. But one point, key takeaway again from this experience is that outdoor companies, I think, have gone to extraordinary lengths to try to absorb the cost of these additional punitive tariffs, not pass them on to the consumer, find opportunities to negotiate with their vendors to help absorb some of that cost on their end as well. But ultimately, these costs were going to have to be passed on to the consumer and have been passed on to the consumer. And so compelled outdoor companies to take a look at what are their opportunities outside of China. That being said, we have seen in some instances where outdoor companies have begun the process to move the supply chains out of China, looked for other opportunities, actually made the move out of China, but have decided to come back because the skill and the expertise, the infrastructure to produce the best outdoor products still remains in China in several areas. So on top of the challenge that our members faced from the US-China trade war, of course, was the COVID-19 pandemic. And I recall conversations with our brands in January of this year, as they were getting word of factories and vendors in China being shut down due to the pandemic and the impact that was having on already beleaguered supply chains due to the 301 tariffs. And so we've seen the impact on the supply chains move initially from China to other vendors across the globe. And the impact has been on brands, suppliers, and workers. Brands with a reduction in demand, a delayed or canceled payments, inventory buildup, some permanent store closures, some permanent bankruptcies, suppliers seeing production delays, major liquidity crises, and of course, workers were forced to stay at home and facing job dismissals and severe impact on their wages. So it was one more challenge that our members had to face as they were managing their supply chains in an uncertain trade environment. There was some limited relief. The administration did allow a postponement of due payments for certain imports in March and in April. There's a tight turnaround on the ability to apply for that duty deferment. And I should also point out that they did not apply to any products affected by China 301 tariffs. So there's a limited opportunity there to preserve some liquidity. And More recently, we have seen another threat on the horizon as the administration announced an investigation into Vietnam, and under the same provision of US trade law that resulted in the China 301 tariffs. So administration is looking at Vietnam's currency practices and their timber trade. And the concern is that the result of these investigations will result in another round of punitive tariffs on outdoor products that are sourced from Vietnam. And as you can see here, Vietnam, the reason why Vietnam is in the focus of the administration is because their bilateral trade surplus is on pace to top Japan and Germany in 2020. And for this administration in particular, with an America First trade policy, they have focused their attention on those countries where the US has a trade deficit. This administration looks at trade where there are winners and where there are losers, and a trade deficit represents a loss for the US, and they looked at using all tools at their disposal, including punitive tariffs, to address that perceived loss and create a win. So that's how Vietnam became under focus with this administration. For our members, it's particularly concerning because Vietnam has become a popular sourcing option for outdoor products coming out of China. And I think this process began even before the China 301 tariff and the US-China trade war. You started to see outdoor companies look to diversify their sourcing options so they didn't have all their eggs in the China basket. And I think the US-China trade war has accelerated that process. So here are two examples. You've seen the growth in sourcing from Vietnam as outdoor companies are looking to move out of China. Sleeping bags, and I should point out that this includes both down and synthetic sleeping bags. Total sleeping bag imports from Vietnam have gone way up since 2017. And likewise with protective active footwear, you see the increase in the protective active footwear lines that we helped create since 2017 as movement has occurred out of Vietnam, out of China to Vietnam. So Vietnam has been an area where outdoor companies have looked to find new opportunities outside of putting all their eggs in the China basket, and now are in the crosshairs of a 301 investigation initiated by this administration. So outdoor companies are managing these challenges of the China 301 tariffs, of the COVID pandemic, an additional round of investigations into Vietnam. Outdoor companies are trying to look at their options. And one bright spot in all this is the US Generalized System of Preferences. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is the main trade preference program for developing countries. Countries like the Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, Cambodia, Myanmar. Eligible products enter the US duty-free if they come from a GSP eligible country. And we, as I mentioned, worked on the initiative to add travel goods to GSP. Make travel goods a part of the GSP program. And we've seen significant duty savings, $300 million in 2019, because we've had that opportunity. So one of the issues we're closely tracking through the end of the year is that the program is set to expire and must be reauthorized by Congress. And there are a couple of proposals out there to do so. So this is certainly a bright spot, for outdoor companies. Have been able to diversify their sourcing options, find other partners, and achieve significant duty savings. As I mentioned, $300 million in 2019. That, of course, fuels new job growth, new product development, innovative new outdoor travel goods. So duty savings can significantly help in those areas. But here's sort of the snapshot of that movement that we've seen out of China since 2015. So China's share of exports on all travel goods fallen from 7.2 billion to 4.5 billion in 2019. And the growth in all travel goods from GSP countries has grown from 580 million to 1.9 billion. So a significant movement in those areas. And a top product in our space, of course, are backpacks, and we've seen those jump to $300 million in 2019. So GSP countries have proven to be a very viable option for outdoor companies as they're looking to diversify their supply chains for travel goods. And the explanation, I think, is quite clear. Where you provide a benefit, where you provide an incentive, in this case, duty-free status, you're going to see that shift out of China to other GSP countries. And that was certainly has been one of our strongest arguments with the administration of why it's urgent to renew GSP. Of course, we're still dealing with this administration, and we also have to keep in mind that as they've utilized trade enforcement tools with China and potentially with Vietnam, they've also significantly reviewed the eligibility status of several GSP partners as a way of negotiating levers to get something in return, from our GSP partners. In some cases, like such as Turkey, they've been graduated from the program. India's benefits have been suspended, and Thailand has also fallen victim to losing a significant number of duty-free benefits under GSP. But one note there is that we were able to successfully petition the administration to preserve duty-free benefits on certain products, in this case, travel goods. And I think we were successful in that area because we were able to show that certainly a priority of this administration is to see movement out of China, and GSP has provided that opportunity for outdoor companies looking to diversify their sourcing options, find other opportunities. And so you may suspend Thailand's benefits in other areas because of a lack of action on market access and other issues, but it was critical to preserve that duty-free status on travel goods for Thailand in order to continue that movement, to continue that incentive to move out of China. So building on that initiative that we worked on, we want to provide additional opportunities for outdoor companies, and additional incentive for outdoor companies that are looking to diversify their supply chains on footwear. So we've worked on an initiative to add certain footwear products to the GSP program. And consistent with our balanced trade agenda, we've gone directly to our domestic manufacturers, companies like Keen and Danner and LL Bean, to develop this initiative. It's a narrow, targeted group of outdoor footwear products, similar to the protective active footwear lines that I mentioned earlier. And we've been able to enlist their support. And so our goal ultimately is to enlist the support of all domestic manufacturers in this area, also work with the domestic footwear trade association to ensure that, again, we're not covering anything that might be produced domestically. But the result of this initiative, if we're successful in the next administration in Congress, is that we'll provide another sourcing incentive, another sourcing opportunity for outdoor companies that may be looking to get out of China, that may be looking to move out of Vietnam in light of a 301 investigation, or because Vietnam is at capacity for a number of footwear products. And so I think we show success in these areas because critically we work with domestic manufacturers to enlist their support, many of whom also source some finished products from abroad as well. In looking at other opportunities in 2021, we also emphasize FTA partners with outdoor companies, those countries with which the United States has a free trade agreement. We were deeply involved in negotiations of the revised NAFTA agreement, the now USMCA agreement, because we want to preserve the duty-free market access for outdoor apparel and footwear and equipment that had been in place for 20 plus years. And again, where members, I think, are looking for certainty in an uncertain trade environment, our FTA partners are a key opportunity, for that kind of certainty. Unlike GSP, which has to be renewed by Congress, free FTA agreements are permanent, unless, of course, the U.S. withdraws from the agreement, as the administration threatened to with USMCA. But that being said, they offer more certainty, I think, to outdoor companies that are looking for those certainty and those kind of sourcing decisions. We've also tried to emphasize to our FTA partners that if you're looking for opportunities for outdoor apparel in particular and outdoor footwear, you have to be mindful of, again, the distinct, unique nature of these products. They're highly innovative, highly technical, requires a particular type of infrastructure or a particular type of workforce. But as an FTA partner, outdoor companies have an eye on these countries. And so I think there's an incentive there for these countries to develop that infrastructure, develop that know-how, to give outdoor companies additional options when they're looking to source products, particularly in the apparel and footwear space. And of course, the administration is in the stages of negotiating agreements with the UK and with Kenya. Don't anticipate much opportunities there for outdoor companies, and it's still an open question whether or not those negotiations will be able to conclude before January 20th. So I wanted to wrap up with just some thoughts on these new opportunities and GSP, these new opportunities with FTA partners, and what this all means with a Biden administration and international trade. We've confronted many challenges over the past several years. At the top of the list is an uncertain trade environment. And so what I've advised our members is that I think a Biden administration, at least, will bring to the table a new tone, a multilateral approach, an emphasis on dialogue and negotiation, but their initial focus will be on domestic priorities. So for the China 301 tariffs, for example, I don't anticipate we'll see any new tariffs. I don't think the tariffs that are in place will be raised. I don't think we'll see tariffs from 4B come into effect. The administration will pursue a more multilateral approach with an emphasis on dialogue and negotiation. But as I mentioned previously, those tariffs are likely to remain for the foreseeable future. President Biden will still need something in return from the Chinese in order to lift those punitive tariffs that are in place. So outdoor companies will still have to take that into consideration as they're trying to make the determination of whether they stay in China or find new opportunities elsewhere, whether it be in a GSP country, Vietnam, or an FTA partner. But one other thing that to keep in mind for outdoor companies, which I've tried to emphasize to our members, is that we may have an opportunity to really revitalize this exclusion process. We'll continue to push for an agreement that would lift all punitive tariffs, and that will be our top priority. But I think we'll also press the administration the new administration in the meantime to recreate the exclusion process, extend some of those exclusions from the tariffs that are set to expire at the end of the year for at least 3 years, and reopen the exclusion process to give stakeholders another opportunity to make the case that their products should be excluded from the 301 tariffs, especially during the year when they're still reeling from the COVID-19 pandemic, dealing with liquidity issues. Every dollar counts. So I think a revitalized exclusion process will help give companies some breathing room as administration we hope will push towards a final agreement. But again, that agreement may not take place in the near future. And so outdoor companies will have to take that into consideration as they're making their sourcing decisions. I think Vietnam will also continue to be a leading option for outdoor companies in the footwear, apparel, and travel goods space. I think that growth will continue. And I am skeptical that a Biden administration will want to go down the 301 route and the punitive tariffs route to address any issues with Vietnam. Again, I anticipate that they would prefer a more multilateral approach with emphasis on dialogue and negotiation. So what I have an eye on is what movement this administration might make before January 20th. And if they would make a push towards putting punitive tariffs on products sourced from Vietnam before January 20th. So that's something that we certainly have an eye on. In terms of developing new trade partners in 2021 and beyond, I think the message to our members is don't expect this incoming administration to immediately rejoin the Trans-Pacific Partnership, for example, or TPP. While then Vice President Biden was part of the team that negotiated TPP under the Obama administration, he did distance a bit from the agreement during the Democratic primaries. And again, his emphasis and focus will be on domestic priorities, for the initial part of his administration. It's also important to point out that incoming President Biden will not have trade promotion authority, the authority to negotiate trade agreements and pass them on to Congress for an up or down vote without the possibility of amendment. This authority has expired, and when it was most recently passed in 2015, recall that while at that time only about 28 House Democrats voted for trade promotional authority at that time. It's very unpopular in the Democratic caucus. It splits the caucus in half. But if there is movement on trade promotion authority, is movement on new trade agreements, we have to keep in mind that they'll likely emphasize labor and environmental provisions, and for the first time, I think, a climate provision in trade agreements. So I think the Biden administration made clear that when there are trade agreements, they're going to want to see climate provisions added to those agreements. Hanging around all of this, and perhaps we can get into this in the Q&A, is what happens in the Senate. If it's a Democratic Senate, I think there's more likelihood of movement on labor, environmental provisions, and climate and trade deals and trade promotion authority. If it's the Republican Senate, there might be some more pushback in those areas. Lastly, on GSP, as I mentioned, a key program for outdoor companies and travel goods, and we hope to see it be a key program on footwear. I anticipate we'll have a partner with the Biden administration on GSP. Of course, the main goal of GSP is to help these developing countries develop export markets, raise standards of living for their populations. But I do think that it's possible that we'll see some amendments made to GSP. Of course, we hope that we see amendments in the footwear space in terms of eligibility of products. But we also see Democrats working with the Biden administration on adding a human rights provision to GSP. On miscellaneous tariff bills, likewise, I anticipate we'll have a partner with a Biden administration, particularly if it will still be some time down the line before we see new trade agreements negotiated. MTBs provide critical duty savings for a limited period, but nevertheless, critical duty savings for outdoor companies that are managing with these tariffs. So just to conclude, what we expect to see again in the new year, I think there is some hope for outdoor companies. We could push for an agreement with China to eliminate all punitive tariffs. In the meantime, an exclusion process or extending existing exclusions will help outdoor companies preserve relationships in China if they feel that China is their best option in terms of getting the best product that they and their consumers expect. I think we'll continue to see some movement out of China. Folks look to Vietnam, even in light of the potential for new tariffs. But other outdoor companies, I think, will remain, and they will conclude that China remains the best option for outdoor products. It has the workforce and the infrastructure to develop those products. So many outdoor companies will remain. I think we will see continued interest in GSP countries and FTA partners, particularly if we can get GSP renewed, particularly if we can add some footwear products to GSP. And at the appropriate time, we're able to work with Congress and administration on launching new trade negotiations that would also emphasize labor, environment, and climate, which for outdoor companies are certainly in line with our values. And I note in the next bullet on sustainability, outdoor companies are at the forefront of developing and utilizing sustainable materials. And so I think we'll have the opportunity to work with this next administration in those areas to provide some incentive for outdoor companies to do what they're already doing in their supply chains and their sourcing strategies with a focus on sustainability. And again, as I just mentioned, I think we'll see at some point movement on trade promotion authority and new free trade agreements, but not initially. The initial focus will be on domestic priorities, helping the country recover from the COVID pandemic, stimulating the economy. Those I think will be the initial priorities of an incoming Biden administration. So that's I think what I have for our presentation. If you have any other questions, you can certainly contact me. Here's my contact information. You can follow me on Twitter for the latest and greatest updates on trade. I've told folks for the past 3 or 4 years that if you're not following the president, you're not likely to get the most immediate updates on trade. We'll see what a Biden administration, how they handle their Twitter account. I anticipate it'll be a little bit different. But in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter for the latest on trade. So with that, I'll conclude here. And Jason, happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely. Let me just get our chat up here, checking with our Facebook. Okay. I got a question for you, Rich.
Yeah.
So we have yet to see what's going to happen with Congress moving forward.
Right.
There's been some Republicans that took some seats recently, but the end of the tail is not going to be set until January. There's 2 scenarios here. Either the Republicans end up taking a vast majority of the seats, or the Republicans continue to take some. I'd like to from your perspective and what you think will happen as far as the relationship between the Biden administration and Congress, if it flips more to the Republican side, and then again, if it flips more to the Democratic side. What do you see happening there?
Sure. I still think that, with a divided government, with Democrats in control of the House and Republicans in control of the Senate, and Biden in the White House, there's still opportunity to work together on trade issues. As I mentioned, the priority of the Biden administration will be on domestic issues. But that being said, I think USMCA sort of could be the model moving forward of how a divided government can work together on trade. House Democrats established a working group. They engaged and worked very closely with Ambassador Lighthizer on changes that they would like to see made to the NAFTA agreement, particularly on labor and the environment. And ultimately, were successful, and the Trump administration was successful in getting that agreement through Congress. And so it's really a big win for the Trump administration and his Republican allies, but also a big win for congressional Democrats. And so I think you could see that same model extended, with a divided Congress, with Republicans in control of the Senate, Democrats remaining in control of the House, and a Biden administration. It might take a little bit more time to get to that point as Biden tries to deal with stimulating the economy, dealing with the COVID pandemic. But that deal making there, I think, and on USMCA can be a model, where both sides are able to get, their priorities, and House Democrats and Biden administration on perhaps labor and the environment and climate, and new business opportunities with lower tariffs and lower regulations. Heightened regulations, for some products that might be favored by congressional Republicans. And so I think there's opportunities to work together there. If the Senate does flip, again, the margins are still going to be small. So you'll have a 50-50 Senate, a slim majority in the House for Democrats. So I don't think, that a Biden administration would still be able to get all of their objectives, simply with Democratic votes in that scenario. They're still going to have to work with congressional Republicans, particularly Senate Republicans, to get any deals done. But again, I emphasize, I think that USMCA model, it could be the path forward, whether it be a Biden administration working with Republican Senate and House, Democratic House, or with a Democratic Congress in general. They're still going to need Republican votes in that scenario, and the USMCA deal could be that model.
Would you say that the trade aspect of how we govern ourselves and the economic aspects are somewhat less polarizing as some of these other issues that we find at the table here, where both parties might disagree about?
In some areas, I think that's right. I don't want to, oversell the case of the USMCA model. I don't think there were some House Republicans and Senate Republicans that, weren't thrilled with, the added emphasis on enforceable labor environmental provisions, perhaps weren't thrilled with the heightened made USA content for automobiles, for example, and certain wages had to be supported in order to qualify. But that being said, I do think it proves that both sides can work together, and it can be a model for getting things done in a hyper-partisan political environment. I think there's broad support for the Generalized System of Preferences program, for example. I think there's broad support for the miscellaneous tariff bill process, for example. And I do think ultimately you can find a way to pass trade promotion authority on a bipartisan basis and negotiate trade agreements that enlist bipartisan support. That's certainly been the goal of our advocacy, is to bring that message, across the aisle, that, for outdoor companies to succeed, the outdoors have to succeed, but we also need some help with our bottom line. And there are outdoor companies in every district and every state. So it's on a bipartisan basis, I think, representatives and senators and Republican and Democratic administrations recognize that trade is one opportunity to help these companies succeed.
Great. Very interesting to see what happened here in the next year or so in regards to that. Rich, I always like to ask our presenters, we had Julie Hughes on yesterday who gave us some nice resources from the USFIA. Do you have any favorites of yours where our viewers can keep up to date on what's happening with trade and the policies and the tariffs and what's happening in China?
Look, what I try to do is, keep our members up to speed for sure. And so I would just emphasize again, reaching out to me. We put out trade alerts specifically directed at outdoor related issues on trade. And you can also go to our website for more information. But we try to keep, because outdoor products are so distinct and unique, as I mentioned throughout my presentation, that we do want to tailor trade alerts and updates on the China 301 tariffs or Vietnam, specifically for outdoor companies. So I encourage you all to reach out to me if you're interested in that space to get more information.
Okay. Is the education tab, is that where a lot of your resources would be on the outdoor website?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We put on a series of webinars in the outdoor trade space. So this year, most recently, we did one on the forced labor issue, legislation pending in Congress on forced labor coming out of China. We've done a similar presentation such as this. We did a presentation on the Vietnam 301 tariffs, or in the previous to that, how to navigate the China 301 exclusion process. So that's a great opportunity on the education tab to learn more. And I should also point out, we have our own outdoor retailer trade show where we're doing a series of presentations in the new year. Look forward to being able to do that in person again, but we'll do a series of virtual presentations in the spring of 2021 on these issues. And anticipate, as we've discussed, we'll know more after January 5th of what the congressional makeup will look like. So stay tuned for more opportunities there.
Fantastic. And I did include the links to all of our attendees for both the education tab on your website and the outdoor retailer. I actually have never been to outdoor retailer personally. For some reason, the scheduling conflicts, but just about every one of my colleagues has, and they speak very highly of it. So great resources, trade shows, and especially our partners here. So I encourage everyone watching to visit the Outdoor Industry OIA website. Links are in the chat function. Thank you so much, Rich. That will conclude our seminar for this time. I would like to remind everyone that we do have the dashboard for the ATSV virtual show. I'm posting it right now. So go to that link if you haven't already. Make sure to check out our pavilions from our exhibitors, and also our matchmaking virtual room, which is essentially taking place of the show floor. That's a great place to network with other attendees. Our matchmaking service is also located there, and also our show staff if you have any more questions on for resources or just about the show. So make sure to check that out as well. And we will be back here shortly with our very next seminar. So again, Rich, good to see you. Hopefully we can see you in person shortly. So take care.
Take care.